Hi everyone, it's Deb at Booklovers Gourmet here in Webster, Mass. I'm happy to share with you this month's featured artist, Ann Tisdell, right here from Webster, Mass also. She is the featured artist for November. The title of her show is Finding the Beauty in Nature, and it consists of acrylic and watercolor paintings. So Ann, why don't you tell us a little bit about your work that's on display and also where your inspiration comes from?
I would say that my inspiration comes from nature. I love animals. I'm particularly interested in endangered species. The first part of the collection has swans, and this is a swan family that I followed back in the spring and summer and fall of 2018. They actually allowed me to get very close. The father was patrolling the nest while his mate was on the nest and came over to check me out. I was on the bike path. And he was a little curious about me, but then finally decided that I was okay, that I wasn't a threat, and he went away. Well, that was the beginning of our relationship. Might sound silly to have a relationship with animals, but they read us by our body language, and the same goes for me reading them. So anyway, a few weeks later, their babies hatched, and I saw them for the first time in this picture up here, which they were very, very young. They were within 2 weeks of age, and it was just very inspiring to see these 5 little babies. As time went on, they grew. I noticed that there was one that was missing one day when I went down there. And then a few weeks later, there was another one missing. There are a number of them that sometimes succumb to predators and other things that aren't apparent, but they all initially looked as if they were healthy. So the couple was left with 3 babies by the end of the season. So the further picture is the Swan Cygnets. They're the babies, and that was taken in the fall of 2018, and they were having a little bit of a conference about how they were going to pose for me. This painting actually was exhibited at the Worcester Art Museum. That same day, the father, the cob, decided to go and give me a show, and he signaled to his brood that it was time to take flight. I had never seen them fly before, so I was able to photograph that. So I had a real strong partner in the family, and incidentally, they allowed me very, very close. These babies were only a foot away from me, if that. Here, this is a watercolor of the family. This was done sometime during the summer. And again, they were sizable. They were almost the size of their parents. And they were feeding. And again, I was very close to them. I didn't have any problems. This piece up here is a lone swan that was right by the water's edge and paused there. And I photographed the swan and was very inspired by the beautiful colors in the water and the luminescence of the swan's feathers. That painting to me came out especially well for a watercolor. The next painting above it is a swan bathing, and this has a backstory as well. I believe that this swan was the father of the family that I talked about, and the reason why I say that is this swan maintained a lot of eye contact with me and spent an hour with me as it was bathing, and his mate was nearby and she was feeding, and it was just a very unique experience. And my husband was with me at the time, and he had no question that this was the swan family, the pair that parented the family that I had followed in 2018. The picture below it is a Canada goose that is bathing. There was a whole gaggle of geese in that particular area that day, and they were I would say easily there were 50 of them. And they were diving around and flapping their wings. So this painting is the result of studying their wing activity and trying to be as accurate as I possibly could be in depicting the animal. That was really special. The painting next to that is a great blue heron, which I encountered again when I was out on the bike trail. And this particular heron was feeding, and he or she had caught a fish and then dropped it into the water, but quickly retrieved it and swallowed it down. So I photographed this heron, and then this was the basis for the painting. Again, another watercolor. The Snowy Owl is another painting that was also displayed at the Worcester Art Museum. I was taking classes with Bill Griffiths, and he did encourage me to paint this. I thought it was too complicated for me, but with his guidance, I painted this painting. It's based on a photograph that a good friend of mine from childhood had taken at Rye Beach, New Hampshire. And they winter here in New England, the snowy owls, and then they return to the Arctic in the spring where they have their babies. The paintings next to that is the koala in Australia during the Australian fires. At this point, I believe that koalas are endangered because many of them were perished in the fires. And eucalyptus trees are their main source of dietary foods, but they also have a high oil content that's very flammable. So when these these trees catch fire, there's a conflagration that occurs. So I'm very concerned about the wildlife in Australia and how many different species perished. Above that is the Alaskan brown bear. I have been to Alaska. I have seen brown bears in Denali National Park. If you've never been there, it is a place of great majesty and beauty. And there are so many different species of animals. But again, we need to respect our environment so that these species survive, so that they're there for future generations to appreciate and enjoy. The next two paintings, the irises, are pretty much from my garden, and this is a two-toned iris. I misspoke. This I did see on the bike trail. I do have a very lovely iris that I also painted that's not in this show. And I was quite fascinated by the colors in the flower, so I did that painting based on a photograph that I had taken. The painting below it is in my garden. This is a goldfinch, and I have all kind of birds that come and visit my flowers. Sunflowers in particular. These birds love sunflowers, and I actually caught them face planting the face of my sunflowers because they love the seeds. But this particular one is perched on top of a zinnia, and if you can notice here, there's a petal, and this bird was plucking the petals off my zinnias. Why, I don't really know, but he was watching me, and then he would turn away and pluck away at the flowers. It was really quite amusing. This painting here is 3 ducklings that I photographed on the bike trail. And these babies had their mother nearby, but there were 2 swans that were also in the same area, and they were causing problems with the mother reuniting with her babies. So they were swimming all around. So it was a very interesting dynamic to observe with these birds. I've seen ducks and geese coexist very comfortably with swans, but it depends on what's going on at the time. Above that, I've mentioned that I'm very interested in endangered species. This is a clouded leopard that I believe is in Asia, and this species is on the brink of extinction. There are not too many that are in the wild. again, it's a very intriguing species because of the markings on the body of the animal. Very, very beautiful. And then the final painting in the exhibit is some winter evergreens at sunset. And I am a former skier and certainly appreciated the winter landscape and the variety of things that I saw and the beauty. So the beauty is out there for all of us to observe and enjoy, but many times people are too caught up in their day-to-day living to really see some of the hints of the glory that's around us. So those are the things that inspire me and keep me painting.
Thank you, Anne. That was lovely. And if you'd like to come on down and see the show, it will be up through November 28th during our regular business hours, which is Tuesday through Friday from 10 to 5, and actually Saturdays also from 10 to 5. And we are located at 72 East Main Street in Webster, Massachusetts. Hope to see you soon.